would you like me to begin? It looks
Sure.
like the attendees are all in the meeting at this point.
Okay.
Um, Good morning. My name is John Farnham. I'm the Executive Director of the Philadelphia Historical Commission, and this is the July 2026 meeting of the Architectural Committee. Before the committee members introduce themselves and then begin their reviews, I have just a couple of notes about how the meeting will run. The meeting is being recorded, and by participating in the meeting, you are consenting to being recorded. The recording will be available later today or perhaps tomorrow on the Historical Commission's website, www.phila.gov/historical. There on the website, on the public meetings page of the website, you'll find the agenda for today's meeting, the application materials, and any public comment received by noon yesterday. So please take a look at those materials if you haven't already familiarized yourself with them. Every agenda item includes an opportunity for public comment. If you'd like to comment during the comment period, you can use the raise your hand feature in Zoom to indicate that you'd like to speak. And then once the chair has acknowledged you to speak, you will need to use the audio toggle to unmute and then mute yourself. The committee typically makes its decisions by unanimous consent, but if there is apparent disagreement, a roll call vote can be conducted. The Historical Commission has adopted guidelines for conduct at its meetings. If you're unfamiliar with those, please take a look at them. They are on the public meetings page of the Historical Commission's website. And then I have one additional note, and I want to make it clear to everyone in the audience that yesterday we were made aware here at the Historical Commission that a recent applicant had received a scam email asking the applicant to pay an application fee to the Historical Commission. It was not legitimate. It was a scam email, as I said. We did send an email to all applicants for the last 6 months, warning them of this possibility and asking them to be very vigilant as they read their emails. If you do receive such an email, we ask that you don't respond to it, don't open any attachments because there may be malware associated with it, and that you forward it to the Historical Commission so that we can report it to the Internet Crime Complaint Center. So just know that the Historical Commission will never ask you to pay anything, especially through email, but will never try to collect a fee or anything else from you. So be vigilant and do not fall for one of these scam emails. And with that, I will turn it to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, John. My name is Nan Gutterman. I will be acting chair for today's meeting. And I would turn to the committee to ask them to introduce themselves, starting with Sam,
Sam Weiner of the committee.
Allison,
Allison McCutcheon Committee.
Justin,
Justin Detweiler of the committee.
Amy.
Amy Stein of the committee.
Okay. The first application that we're going to be reviewing is 1018 Winter Street. Could the staff review the application and I guess the applicant be elevated to panelist?
Good morning, everyone. This is Allison Maley of the staff, and if I can ask that architect Sam Zhu and owner Harry Leong be elevated to panelist if they're in attendance. This application proposes demolishing the main front block, roof, and a portion of the rear L of 1018 Winter Street and reconstructing the main block with an additional floor and new roof with dormer. Construction of a new second and third story and a roof deck are proposed at the rear. The building was constructed in 1830 and retains a high level of historic integrity with its form, features, and materials. The property is individually listed on the Philadelphia Register of Historic Places. Although the rear of the property includes a parking area, the back of the building is not visible from the public right-of-way. This project was first presented at the February 24th meeting of the Architectural Committee and the April 10th meeting of the Historical Commission this year. It proposed substantial demolition of the front of the building. The Architectural Committee recommended denial of that application. The application presented a significantly revised application to the Historical Commission that maintained the historic front wall, roof, and main block and focused the new construction to the rear of the building. The Historical Commission commended the applicant and said the revised application was moving the project in the right direction. The Commission asked the applicant to continue to develop the revised proposal and provide a structural engineer's report on the building owing to its poor condition. The Commission did not approve or deny the application, but instead remanded the application back to the Architectural Committee for an additional review because of the magnitude of the revisions between that committee and commission meeting. And that is why this is being presented today. So the application submitted for this meeting includes the requested structural report and a revised scope of work. The application is substantially different than the version presented at the April 2026 meeting of the Historical Commission. So for this particular application, the revised one, the staff recommendation is denial pursuant to standards 2, 9, and 10. And just to let the committee know, we have the full application. And just to touch on what I just spoke about, this is what was originally presented to you in February. It included maintaining the first level and reconstructing a new second and third floor. And then you could see the rear of the property. And then at the commission meeting, it was revised to maintain the front, the main block, and all of the new construction actually occurred at the rear of the property. So that brings us to today and the current proposal. And as I mentioned, the architect is here with us, Sam Zhu. And if the owner is in the meeting, he can join us as well. Thank you. Sam, are you here with us?
Yes. Good morning.
Excuse me, this is John Farnham. I believe that Sam is logged in on 2 devices. That's going to create feedback, so I think one of them will have to be muted.
And John, I've lost the picture, so I'm going to log out and log in.
I guess once the applicant is back online here, it would be really great to hear about why the application was changed, if a structural engineering report was completed. I personally didn't see one in my packet. So it seems like we need to hear from the applicant in order to
Amy,
proceed and discuss the project.
there is one in there now.
Yeah,
I don't know if it was added after you reviewed it, but there's one in there.
Perfect.
Sorry to interrupt again. This is John Farnham again. It looks like Sam, the architect, not the committee member, has been moved out of the panelist level, but he's still logged in as an attendee. Perhaps we need to elevate the other. I'm sorry, he's back again.
Sorry, I was a little bit confused what one to turn off. Can everybody hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good, thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Sam Xu. I'm the architect and applicant. This is our third trial to try to obtain the approval. The first one was probably too much of a change to the front, particularly to the gable roof, that completely different from the original style and material and all that. So after the first review, we make changes and try to keep the gable front and then make all the changes in the back. But when we had the architectural report by the engineer, walk through and identify the problems, we found there are too many issues we have to deal with, and also even if we make changes according to the engineer report, the end result is still very poor. In particular, the probably the changes throughout the years, making the interior spaces very awkward and difficult to use, and also the original stair is very small and narrow. It is completely outdated and not to today's use standards. Um, and it also has multiple levels, a lot of different twists and turns, and it's just impossible to make it work. Even if we try to modify the stairs to meet today's standards, there's just not enough room to make it work. So the engineer report is recommending replacing the front brick wall because it's leaning and needed repair, and also the gable joists are undersized and sagging. So with all those problems, we consider the design and taking everything into consideration. We try to also we try to keep the original appearance, but it's just not at the same height as before. Since we have to do all those uh, engineering changes, we thought maybe we can raise the front gable to 1 story. That way, I guess simplify things and make uh, all those problems easy to resolve. And then we came up with this front gable raised 1 story, and then put the roof deck on the third floor, accessed by the stormer, and then the rest remaining or make use of the good components like the breezeway brick wall incorporated into the expanded uh, back section of the building. So that's basically what has been changed for the third time. So by doing so, we hope the front is very similar to, well, except its height. We try to keep the same appearance with
Excuse me,
similar.
Mr. Wu. We've reviewed the application and the documents that have been submitted. It would be best that you focus on the engineer's report, which says that the building needs to come down, as opposed to walking us through your documents, because we only have a limited amount of time to review each applicant that's on our agenda today.
Right. Yeah. The the engineer report identify many problems, issues, and we are trying to keep what is still good and incorporate into the design. But I don't believe the engineering report is recommending the total demolition of the building.
No, it's not recommending total demolition of the building.
Right.
It's most of the wood framing can either be replaced or sistered to address deficiencies, whether they're deterioration or undersized. It looks like the rear masonry wall could remain with repairs. And I guess the roof framing is probably the worst of it. It looks like the biggest recommendation that I saw was related to the front wall. I mean, I don't know that this is the right platform for me to agree or disagree with another engineer's report. I don't know that I see the exact same things, but these are just limited snapshots in time. I guess my understanding, though, would be that if you're replacing this wall, you would be rebuilding it and replacing it in kind because this is individually designated property. So if structurally, if you need to replace this wall, you would have to rebuild it as is with salvaging material that's there. I mean, I think you could save this. I still believe it just looking at it. I mean, without removing the interior plaster, it's hard to tell what is the true condition of this wall. I know, yes, there's clearly been water and moisture infiltration over the years. It's potential, it's salvageable, but if it's not, I think you have to rebuild it in kind, is my understanding.
Well, to be clear, you're not going to pull the wall back the straight, but you could stop it from moving anymore.
Correct.
It's probably in perfectly good condition to do that, having not seen it, but just
Right.
based on my experience doing these.
No, I agreed. If you
Yeah.
once you sister and reinforce the framing, which is deficient, you could then arrest any further movement with additional star bolts or other measures to sort of stitch it back together so that it doesn't keep moving forward. I mean, I think the maximum dimension that I saw listed was around 1.125 inches, which I mean, I think all of us on this call have saved building facades that have moved even more than that. So I don't see anything that says you can't save it, but I haven't surveyed this building myself. This is a signed report. I think if you have to replace it, I think it has to be in kind, and that means without an addition and all of that other stuff is the way that my position.
Well, I think one thing worth noting is the goal here is to make the front of this building a 3-family building and to add a 3rd floor to it. And I think that while it's fixable in its current status, it's larger goal here to add another story on top of it may very well make these things impossible. But I disagree with that goal to begin with. I don't think that this should have, while I'm all for density in our city and increased density, I don't feel that adding a 3rd floor and squeezing 3 small units into this very small footprint and height of a row house is appropriate for the scale of this building. The building to the left of it is a larger building, has more ceiling height and other things, and I think those buildings are a little more flexible than the one we've currently got here. I mean, we have a very small scale building that is being asked to do too much.
Yeah.
And I think that, making a 3rd floor on this building may facilitate the need for it to be rebuilt, but I don't agree with the fact that it should have a 3rd floor. I don't think it should. I think it should maintain, and even if in some world where I agreed that it does need a reconstruction, it should look like what we're seeing in this photograph. It should not look different. Again, this is an individually designated building and has a certain level of historical significance that would be lost here with this proposal. So I don't agree that this should be altered in this way.
Does the committee have-
Justin, this is Allison from the staff. I have a comment about that. So, in the proposal that was offered at the last historical commission meeting, the applicant did do that, and they added a lot of density at the back. So I think if you or the committee can talk about that, because I think that the staff felt that seemed to be a proposal that was, like the commission said, moving in the right direction. The parking lot at the rear is not visible from the right of way. So I think if the committee could provide the applicant with some direction on what could happen at the rear of this property, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I do agree that with you, Allison, and the previous committee and commission discussion that is a much better approach here. That the rear of the property is where the density should happen, and that the current scale of the front of this building is the most important thing to preserve. So if we could go back a step to that scheme, I do agree that overbuild in the back is a bit tall, is a bit bulky and boxy. But I think that having that as a separate piece is preferred than attaching to the front building as we're seeing in the revised proposal. I think this overall is a better proposal. I think there are things that could be improved upon it, but I don't, I think overall it's a much better approach.
Are there any more comments by the committee? John or Allison, are there any public comments?
Yes, one hand is raised. Ben Shi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Mr. Shi.
Hi. Yeah, so I'd like to give a comment in support of an application or this application. And in general principle, I think of adding density here is really needed. The applicant's family, they're noted community leaders in Chinatown, and they've really been driven to increase the number of housing in Chinatown. It's a really important issue for the community, as I also am involved with the community. And I'd just like to note that in terms of the actual strict density, even with reconstruction of the front facade as 3 stories plus a dormer, that matches in totality with historical structures just across the block, even across the block at the 900 block of Winter, where you do have these existing scale of 3-story front facades with the dormer. So it's not like that anything like that would be out of context for the neighborhood. Like this is a very, very predictable, a very expected type of building typology that's being proposed here. This really comports with, I think, the incremental style of densification that Philadelphia row houses have received throughout the centuries, right? I know that this structure was only designated because it was old, it was 1830s, right? But I think that the overall intent of preserving, especially the arched doorway, especially preserving the brick facade, preserving the arrangement of the bays and the windows here, I think that alone, I think justifies a lot of what you see here, right? Any rear addition, like other people have said, could compete with the actual roof line from looking at Winter Street. So I just really want to sort of commend the developer here and the proposal here for creating what really looks to be like a very compatible development and compatible style with the overall context of Chinatown. I just want to say that I think that it's important that the committee here can really make an affirmative statement to help advance the housing density and housing counts in Chinatown, because even though units may look small, right, these are going to be units that are being used by for multiple members of a family, right? These are appropriate sized units that really could help low-income residents to find housing that fits their needs as well, right? It's not just that, everyone needs to live in one type of housing. So I think that I really cannot see anything here that would not look out of place in Chinatown as it exists right now, especially given that so many other facades have already been altered, right? This would be the moment to avoid demolition by neglect or financial hardship if we can avoid it, and to really provide a good example of incremental and housing here. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments?
No other hands are raised.
Okay. Can I get a motion for 1018 Winter Street, please?
I can go with the staff recommendation of denial pursuant to standards 2, 9, and 10.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Okay, the motion carries. The next applicant is 124 and 126 South 7th Street.
Good morning. This is Kim Chantry with the staff. Tony, if we could please elevate Reed Slogoff, and Reed can let us know if there's anyone else here, or if you're here representing the application team, if you could use the raise hand feature and we can promote you to panelist. I'll read a brief overview. The one-story commercial buildings at 124 and 126 South 7th Street are very small. Each is about 13 feet wide and 18 feet deep. They have flat roofs. They're constructed as one-room retail shops in 1876, and this application proposes to incorporate them into the residential high-rise development that will be constructed to the south and west of them on the lot at 708 Sansom Street. The Historical Commission reviewed and commented on the high-rise development in April 2024. The small buildings would be used as entrances to the interior motor court of the high-rise building. Sections of the side and rear walls, roofs, and interior party wall would be removed to incorporate the buildings into the larger project. The front facades of the buildings would be restored with the exception that the single step below each storefront door would be removed for accessibility. The restoration can be guided by insurance surveys and historic photographs. Historically, only the front facades of the buildings were visible from the street. The side and rear walls were party walls shared with adjacent properties, but had been exposed with recent demolitions. The flat roofs of the one-story buildings are hidden behind bulking storefront cornices. Therefore, the storefronts were the only parts of the building visible from the public right-of-way historically, and are therefore the only character-defining features of the buildings. And integrating them into new development is likely their only option for retention and restoration. And the staff recommendation is approval with the staff to review details pursuant to standards 2, 6, and 9.
Do we have the applicant?
Yes, this is Reed Slogoff from Pearl Properties. And Kim, can you elevate Morris Clark and Jay Rockefeller if they're not, and Jim Pearlstein as well?
Okay, and Reed, I'm going to ask you not to walk us through the application as such, but just sort of talk to us about what changed between this application and the previous application that was approved by the committee and the commission. So just in the interest of time.
Sure. I don't think there was anything approved prior as it relates to these two properties. These are separately, we had gone through an extensive process on the rear property that we own, which is a development site, 708 Sansom. And these two properties are on 7th Street. As Kim mentioned, we're here solely because they were included on the Preservation Alliance's nomination for Historic District for Jewelers Row, which therefore brought us here on these two properties, which, as Kim mentioned, both are I'll use the word dilapidated, out of use essentially, and have not been visible other than the streetscape because of the rear properties that used to exist. And for context, we have met with the Preservation Alliance, who I believe Hannah is here as well, to review our plan since they were the nominator for the district. We've also met with the Washington Square West Civic Association as well as the Society Hill Civic Association, who are constituents, and received no opposition to what we're planning. And the plan here is to refurbish the storefronts as they exist and make them functional. And we will do so in accordance with the standards under the ordinance as we review with staff. And happy to hear any questions that you might have.
So in essence, they're becoming a screen, right? They're going to be open at the rear. It's a front kind of facade, but it has completely open to daylight at the back. Is that right?
Well, yes. I mean, you can see the plans that are attached. So we've made them as functional as possible.
So when you look through, I'm just trying to understand. So when you look through the storefronts, you're seeing the motor court beyond, right?
Well, that's how you would get to the motor court beyond. There will be on the 124 side, there'll be a door.
No. I'm just trying to understand. There's no frosting on the glass, or there's no anything else. You're seeing through them. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just asking.
Well, we've articulated, you can, if you pull back on the first plan, you can see the elevation, the rendering, which gives you a sense of what it will look like.
But basically,
you're not seeing anything. You're seeing a blue rectangle. That's
how
what
will the
I'm just trying to
glass be treated? Right. Will the glass be painted at the back side? Will you be able to look through the glass? It's not really a building, it's a false facade. And so we're just wondering how that will be treated. Will it be transparent? Will it be opaque?
Well, we would need to review details, obviously, with staff as we pursue once we get to that stage.
Is there a roof on this object?
Jay, do you want to jump in here and give us some context?
Yeah, this is Jay Rockefeller from DAS Architects. Yes, there is a roof just over that first 3 or 4 feet when you come in. This is kind of creating a gateway to that motor court. I believe the intent now is that it will be clear glass, just try to get as much light as we can into that space.
So it's a functioning pedestrian entrance into the motor court, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
And the wall, I would just say it was a little challenging to review because there's so little information. I would ask that before it goes before the full commission, if there'd be a little bit more on here, like, there's no dimensions. There's only one dimension on the entire thing, which is the side partition alongside the driving lane. So if you could, how big are the doors? How do those function? I mean, and I guess this is almost a question for Kim too. The historic image shows a very different facade and door configuration, etc., than what is currently there. Would the doors, these are double doors, the storefront windows are totally different. Would the goal be to replicate that or replicate what's currently there?
I'll kick that one to the architects. I assumed that the goal was to restore to the current appearance, essentially.
Yeah, that's correct.
So how big are those doors now? Are they 3-foot doors? Are they 2'6" doors? Like what's happening?
They're 3-foot doors. And as mentioned, we would lower the sills to make these ADA compliant, because right now they're have steps up, so they would get a little bit taller than they currently are. But they would be the same 3-foot doors that are there.
Can I I'm a little curious too. So it's open at the backside because this is now a portal, and there's like a tiny sliver of roof over it, and that's what it is?
Correct.
So, I mean, I'm just curious, like from like a stability perspective, we only have like this level, like how is this? I see you're adding some columns. I don't know if you're adding braces that's going to ultimately brace this wall for the long term or provide any sort of stability. I mean, it was a box in theory and it had stability from that, and now we just have this sort of portal and it wasn't designed originally as a portal. So I just want to make sure like that what we're doing here is intended for the long term and we don't have in 10 years an issue with it's falling apart and we can't fix it to save
We
it.
are intending on adding kind of a steel frame. That's what the columns are, sort of at the
Okay.
exit. We are adding a screen wall also at the southern side there. That'll be used.
Okay.
For its lateral stability. So this will all tie back in together into our new structure to reinforce.
Okay. And then everything is just being detailed to be what was once an enclosed building structure. Now it's being detailed and treated as an exposed condition.
Correct.
Okay.
I guess,
think
oh,
Go ahead,
go
Amy.
ahead.
No, go ahead.
I wanted to shift topics actually. So if you had a question about that, please continue.
Well, my question is, and it's not as much a question as it is a point, we're also removing the sidewall of this structure in order to get parking and driving through here. I think, in the image that we're looking at here, the sidewall, the south wall of this has been reduced by 50%, but it still has it still holds as a corner. And I think the larger plan, which is blown up, reduces that even more to 3 feet. And that to me makes, I don't want this to read as some sort of garden screen. I want this to read as a structure. It is a structure. I understand that south wall is not terribly interesting, but I think this should read as a building and not a screen. And I think the wider that wall is, the longer that wall is, the better for the overall aesthetic of trying to preserve this as this wonderful little retail space in terms of its history. I think, if that 3-foot wall could increase to 6 feet, I think that would help this read as a building and not a pergola or a screen or something.
In fact, in the ground level plan that says concept 8 of 11, it reads as something that's 8 or 9 feet wide, and that feels better.
Yeah.
It's 8 or 9 feet wide, that kind of end screen wall that caps the building.
What is that end screen wall? Is there an image of that I missed?
You can see it on that perspective view.
Okay.
Page 6 of 11.
Okay.
There we go.
Kind of on
Stucco?
a big angle there, but it's like a mosaic tiled wall.
Okay.
I think that's a much better scale there so that this does read. So you're saying that sheet 9 of 11 is not what's proposed.
I think I read that sheet 9 of 11 is how much of the existing that they were proposing to
I see.
retain. And then
Okay.
so that they
That's
could
totally-
install a new column and then they'd have their bracing and what have you to sort of stiffen it. And then in front of that, they'll build the mosaic wall.
Thank you. I think if you could just add a little bit of this information before it goes before the full commission, it would be a little easier to review because I went kind of back and forth trying to understand this. And it's actually very simple.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a little more information because I missed it in the perspective, but I now that I'm looking at it, I do like how that reads.
So I agree that in theory and principle, this works in particular with that wider end wall. My question is really shifting gears a bit to, we're building this massive high rise next to this tiny storefront and trying to preserve it. And I'm just wondering what protection strategies you are employing on the roof, the dormer, and the delicate details of the rear L that you're preserving during this massive operation that's behind that building. I'm just concerned, it will get hit by a material, something, a swing, something that is dropping. I'm just wondering, is there any mitigation strategies for the building to protect it? Any kind of strategies to test whether or not it's moving, etc.?
I can take that, Jay. We're obviously, we will need to have full permitting from L&I for the project, and that will necessarily include all of the safekeeping that you're talking about. And we've done a number of large high-rise developments in the city, and we're very painstaking about protection. We understand those issues. Actually, this will enable us to be better at that from an overall site standpoint.
I can imagine, a scaffolding sort of going over the whole building to try to protect it from things, because it's there's a lot of work happening right next to this facade. And at the end of the day, if we lose a roof or lose a facade in this process, it would be very unfortunate.
Understood.
So I guess, for myself, I think staff at the Historical Commission ought to be part of the details that are shared with them as this moves forward and advances.
Back to my earlier question about what is being replicated in this reconstruction or repair of this facade. I personally feel that what does get put back should not be kind of a bastardized version that existed or was modified over time, that it should look like it should have that historic original look to it. And I would say that, in my opinion, it should have the type of window or door that it previously did. I know those were double doors, but maybe they could be made into a single slab so that it has, we shouldn't be replicating, in my opinion, a door in an aesthetic that is not historic. The character of this building is an earlier age. And so I would request that it has that earlier appearance as is shown in the historic photo.
Are there any more committee comments? Kim, are there public comments, or John?
Yes, one hand raised. David Traub.
Good morning, David Traub, representing Save Our Sons. Just a few comments about this proposal. I walked by the site yesterday and I was immensely impressed by the character and charm of the two little buildings. They're the sort of things that make Philadelphia really a very attractive city, unusual, and in a special way. I do feel that there will be a loss to the city and the immediate environment if these two buildings are turned into entries and exit ways. There's a little shop there in one of the buildings. It wasn't open yesterday, but it has great charm, and the retaining retail on the street does add to the viability of the streetscape. Also, it occurs to me that the opening for the entry of the cars is very wide, very gaping. Is it possible to carve out the entryway in that sector of the property? Maybe that's not possible. I haven't studied the considerations, but that would save the two little buildings and have them retained as what they are. Having said all of that, maybe what I propose is not possible, but I do agree entirely with Mr. Detweiler that the south wall of the building should be extended the full length of the existing middle buildings. It should read as a structure, as he says. And I agree that the detail, whatever is done, the detailing of the two little buildings should replicate that which is there, or would be surmised as the original historic appearance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone, any other comments, public comments?
No other hands are raised.
Okay. Can I get a motion from the committee?
I'll make a motion to go with the staff recommendation of approval, but I'll amend it to say that the south wall should maintain its full width and that the storefronts should replicate the aesthetic of the 1959 historic image that was included in the staff packet, with the staff to review details pursuant to standards 2, 6, and 9.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? When you say full width, you mean beyond the 8 feet or so that they're showing in the image on the upper left?
Well, I guess let me pause for a second and say, what is that dimension? I don't know that we have an answer to that question.
I believe it's 9 feet. That's green wall.
Could you-
It's 18 feet deep.
It's about half of the building's depth, and previously that wall, prior to the building that got taken down several years ago, had been completely covered. It was not exposed. You can see in the picture that's there, you can actually see where the other building had previously attached to it.
So it was existing, or historically it was 18 feet plus or minus, and you're proposing 9. I personally think more is better, especially since there's a roof structure cantilevering out beyond it. What do we think as a committee? If I pause my motion.
I mean, I'm fine with the half of it because I think I'm honestly just thinking about the stability of how this all works. So to me, like having this sort of wall hanging out there, if you're not going to have a roof and really tying it all together, so I think the rendering is missing details, but I think it reads as a mass with that 9-foot wall. And so that's the only part of your motion that I'm currently taking exception to. So I'm trying to figure this out.
No, I understand that and I appreciate that. I think it needs to be 9 feet minimum. I think no less than that, in my opinion. I think otherwise it doesn't read as a building.
Right.
And 9 is pushing it anyway. So I accept that 9-foot width in my motion.
I would second it.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask, Amy made a comment about protection of the existing building. Justin, would you be amenable to adding something in your motion about that
Yes.
protection in
Yes,
order
I would.
to ensure that there's no damage to that corner building when the larger building is constructed adjacent to it, behind it, above it, etc.?
Doesn't that
Yes.
get into means and methods of construction, though?
I'm not saying the how to do it. I'm just saying the intent to do it.
I agree and accept that addition that the all care should be taken to preserve and protect all of the existing fabric at this corner, in conjunction with L&I, but also I think if possible, the staff should participate in that review.
Sam, are you okay with that amendment since you seconded the motion?
Yes.
Okay. Can we?
I resecond my second.
Okay. Can the committee vote on the motion as presented?
Aye.
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 Sam?
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. Thank you. And we'll move on to the next application.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank
Thanks.
you. 1504 Pine Street.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Matt. Ted.
Okay. Let's see who's joining us from the applicant. Looks like Master Pasqua has his hand raised. If he can be elevated to speak, please do that. And I'll read a brief overview. This application proposes applying a stucco finish over the brownstone facade of 1504 Pine Street. The property is part of a row of 18 Italianate brownstone row houses, can't talk to this morning, designed by prominent architect Thomas Eustace Walter and built in 1851. Prior to the row's designation in 1971, a rusticated stucco coating was applied over the first 2 floors of the building at 1504 Pine Street. The brownstone on the upper floors exhibits some delamination and damage. Windows at the basement and 4th floor were replaced without historical commission approval in 2009, and a legalization application for that work was denied in 2010. The illegal windows remain in place. The current applicants, new owners of the property, propose removing the older stucco and applying a thin layer of stucco over the entire facade, tooled with a simulated joint pattern. They cite the stuccoed facade at 1514 Pine Street as a similar scope of work. The stucco work at 1514 and the adjacent property at 1506 Pine Street both predate the designation of this row. The proposed scope of work would likely result in removal of detail of the trim elements around the window openings, in addition to the more elaborate ornament on the 1st and 2nd floors currently covered by the rusticated stucco. The application also proposes replacing the windows on the front elevation. Elevation drawings for those windows suggest that the proposed replacements replicate the historic windows with a thicker central muntin, but no section drawings have yet been submitted. The staff recommendation is denial pursuant to standards 5 and 6 and the masonry guidelines. And I believe that the applicant has been promoted.
Yes. Hi. Matt Master Pasqua. I'm the architect for the project. I really have nothing to add to Ted's presentation just yet. I think the owners, if they are on, might have some justification to using stucco versus brownstone restoration. And one sort of like clerical thing, we will have the details and sections for the windows shortly. We're just waiting on the detailer from the window manufacturer to send those over.
Is the owner able to join the call? Do you, Matt or Ted?
I had told them to arrive, like be here at 9:30, and I told Ted to add them to the list, but I don't know if they're actually.
I see that Greg has raised his hand. I believe he is one of the group.
Yes.
If he can be elevated.
Hey, good morning, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hey, this is Roy Aronovich. I'm here with Greg Barnaby.
Hey, just sharing the screen, sorry.
Yeah, we're on behalf of the ownership group. We purchased this property a few months ago. It seems like, the brownstone is in pretty bad shape from the 3rd to the 4th floor. We walked the block a few times to figure out what can be done to the facade. How can we fix this? We're not sure if, that stucco work between the street level to the end of the 2nd floor is something that was, done according with the PHC or not. But we're trying to resolve this issue and figure out how we can restore this building. It seems like, one of the better ways to do it was to use the EFIS system and just re-stucco it, just like the other building that we
1514, yeah.
Yeah, on Pine Street. We're not sure what's behind the stucco right now. I think, it would be nice if we can take the whole thing and brownstone all of it, but I think financially it just doesn't make sense, and we also don't know what's behind the walls.
There's brownstone behind there.
And I will say ephes is a horrible material that you should never consider using. It will trap moisture in your wall. So that's my opinion of ephes. So
Shared
there
by,
any-
shared by others on the committee.
What is your opinion? The goal is to, I mean, if we could wave a magic wand and have the third and the fourth floor just brand new, beautifully in period correct fashion, just that
I
the whole
haven't
summit, that's what we
asked-
want.
There are lots of other materials out there as far as composite patches for brownstone, using cast stone. I'm currently working on a project where we are replacing brownstone with brownstone. A lot of the issues with the brownstone is how it was laid and that the bedding planes are parallel to the wall. So thereby, as long as they remain parallel to the wall, they will continue to delaminate. That just has to do with how they were installed back in when this building was built. But you do have to be cautious because if moisture gets behind whatever you apply to the front, that material will fail with time. So I am not a fan of coating masonry elevations with stucco, but that's again my personal opinion as one of 5 committee members today. So
Well, I would ask you, Nan, not to put you on the spot, but you are the one on this committee that probably has the most experience with brownstone. What methods and materials do you think work best?
So the most cost-effective material would be for someone to get up and sound the brownstone and then do composite patches. So to remove the delaminated material and to install a composite patch material made by many manufacturers to basically be able to replicate the historic features of the brownstone. If you had a little more money, one might consider actually removing, I don't know how, so one of the things you need to figure out is how deep these brownstone units are and how much of the material can actually be removed and whether or not you still have enough there to provide a watertight elevation. So one needs to do some investigation. The other issue is how deep is really the delamination? And is it a layer of the brownstone? Is it 3 or 4 layers of the bedding planes of the brownstone? So without sort of knowing what the conditions really are, it's hard to make an assumption based upon the photographs that have been provided. But there are indeed composite patch materials and manufacturers. There's cast stone that could be used, basically remove a unit and put a prefabricated unit in its place. And then the third option would be to replace it with brownstone, but rotate the bedding plane of that brownstone so it will not it doesn't restart the clock as far as delaminating the material the same way it does. It basically, you're putting the bedding planes perpendicular to the exterior wall. So thereby there can be the chance of delamination is minimized in the future.
I have a few questions. Did you guys take notes on Nan's
dissertation?
Yes,
You should, because that's an expert opinion.
that was very educational.
Sorry.
Did the developer? It's obviously a financial hardship. So did you gentlemen price the ephes option versus the brownstone option yet?
Not yet.
Okay. I don't have nearly as much experience as Nan, but even with a product like Jan and patching the upper floors, is that something that you would find acceptable, Nan? A product
Yeah, I
like
mean,
that?
Jan is, I was trying not to name manufacturers.
I
There's
understand.
Camproco, there's Jan, there's Edison
There's a
Coatings. There
got
are
it. Okay.
several materials out there that can be used as far as composite patch, and you're limited the repairs to the areas that need repairs, and you're not coating the entire elevation.
And not that I don't know if this applies to a historical, what our purview is. I'm just curious. Is the use of the property going to be single family? Is it going to be something you keep and rent for a while?
These would be apartments, yep, which they are currently, yeah.
And is there any thought about doing historical tax credits to offset the cost of the facade restoration?
We're just unsure that it would be a total substantial enough amount to justify, but it's a thought. Yeah, certainly. It's a good idea.
Okay. I would just be curious what the cost delta is between doing the EIFS the quote unquote right way. I know,
yeah, I think it was just more
opinions on it.
verbalized. Yeah, more than figures given or bids, produced exactly or
Yeah.
estimates. It was just sort of, postured, I guess, by historic masons and subcontractors that we'd engaged. Just that it's, again, it'll be 3 or 4 times the cost. Again, what exactly the delta is, I don't know, but it just is enormous, certainly, which makes sense. I can't imagine that it's easy. I can't imagine that it's, everybody off the street can do it. And, it makes sense, but. Yeah.
I understand where you guys are coming from. I've been on both sides of the table. My only question would be, there's 2 stories of stucco, and if the upper floors could be salvaged pretty easily, what does that look like in terms of this conversation? That's all.
The other issue with EIFS is that, if I remember correctly, it's basically applying a piece of insulation and then stuccoing on top of that. By doing that, you're going to lose all the profiles of the upper 2 floors. So there's also a loss of historic fabric in the application of that type of material versus a composite patch where you can replicate the profiles that exist now.
Yeah, that definitely is true. One consideration that ownership made, I believe, is to do typical stucco, masonry stucco on top of the brownstone. That way we would get tighter to the window surrounds at least, and we could simulate the mortar beds of the joints.
And I'm not sure about applying a traditional 3-coat stucco to the brownstone without putting lath on the substrate. So you may end up losing some profiles versus just doing composite patches, which loses,
for sure,
actually replicates all the profiles that may have been lost at various elements. So it would be a shame if the upper 2 floors look like the lower 2 floors, but I'm not supposed to be editorial on this committee. So
understood. Yeah, the upper window surrounds are very beat up too. Like if you go back to the pictures, Ted, you can see a lot of if you actually scroll to some of the buildings that are in better shape on the block. I think it was the next one down, maybe. We had a few pictures of buildings that are in good shape on the block. So maybe go down one more, possibly. I just saw it. It just flashed. I guess one up. Sorry. There we go. So these 2 pictures show what the windows were intended to look like with a lot more detail. Most of the houses on the block have deteriorated to the point of really just being flat window surrounds. You can barely tell there's a sill versus a header versus the jams and the extensions and such. So we were intending to just wrap what is remaining there as much as possible. I don't think we're going to be able to replicate, back to its original profile and everything like that without exorbitant cost increase. And then I did have one question for you, Nan, about you had mentioned cast stone. Is that something that we would replace portions of this brownstone with, delaminated portions, like some of those headers and sills?
I mean, that's what I have done on projects. I mean, you would need to talk to Ted about, I would believe, Ted, please speak up, that the staff would consider one-for-one replacements of individual pieces as opposed to coating the entire facade with a imitation material.
Right. Okay. Great. That's good to know. I mean, that might be a more economical way of achieving what the commission is after. And then I did have one other question for, I guess, the whole committee. In terms of the first and second floor stucco, taking that down and exploring what's back there and what condition it's in, is that something we need your input and approval on to do? Like, how should we go about, figuring out what the condition of the first two floors is?
Again, Ted, I'm going to kick this to you. I would believe you all would want to be present when they exposed an area, but I would believe that the brownstone is probably, I would doubt that the brownstone could be saved if given that material, but I don't know how it was applied or how long it's been there. So I would not want to hazard a guess. But
Yeah,
Ted,
I think the staff would ask for a small sample patch somewhere.
I would
maybe
say
where there's
somewhere
not
in
a
the
lot of detail.
basement
Yeah.
below the water, at the water table, that's inconspicuous and can be repaired.
Okay. Is that something we could get input on and do prior to our commission meeting next month?
Yeah, I think our staff could probably administratively approve that kind of exploratory work. I'll talk to the team to
Okay.
make sure, but I think so.
Great. All right. I'll talk to the clients, the owner, and see what we want to do in that regard.
Nan, is there any world where, and I'm just putting out ideas, so don't be alarmed. I feel the same way about EIFS, but I also believe with EIFS, if it's done correctly, it can be a viable material sometimes. Is there a world where floors 1 and 2 get some treatment and floors 3 and 4 get a different treatment?
I mean, me personally, I think that's possible. I personally would rather see traditional stucco than EIFS. I really dislike, I personally, as an architect, dislike EIFS. But again, that's my personal opinion as one of 5 people today. The rest of the committee may have a different opinion or thoughts about EIFS.
I share it completely.
I also hate EIFS. I'm just gonna if we're taking the poll.
Yeah, I hate it. I do hate it also. I'm just being
the issue is in my mind is it traps moisture in your wall.
That's a big part of this.
And thereby it can cause deterioration, which will cause failure of the EIFS.
And I don't think in good conscience we can endorse something like that knowing that likely result.
I misspoke. Is there a world where the first 2 floors have some sort of stucco treatment?
I think if you were going to say to remove I don't even know how to call it, rusticated, flowery looking stucco, and remove that and put a more traditional flat stucco that you score the joint lines and you somehow maybe figure out how to replicate the heads of windows and the sills better than what you currently see. I would believe that I could support that. I would just want to see the details and the product literature. And I would at some point in time suggest that the staff see a mock-up of what's being proposed, done on a piece of plywood that can be looked at in the field. Because if you're going to need to figure out colors and scoring and when are you scoring it and what the depth is and whatever. So me personally would say it's a go.
I think this is, and I heard your comments about the window surrounds, but I'm looking at my other screen here at a photo of the building. The 6 upper floors, it's not difficult to replicate the original window surrounds. So that unfortunately is not a great argument. But I think it's also a function of just finding the right mason. This isn't like a spec building, new construction mason you're calling for this job. And I understand you may not want to call some of the bigger players. But there are guys out there that could do this for you. And I would almost argue that restoring the upper two floors, and if you're allowed, or if we come to some sort of agreement on the lower two floors with a different media, you may be at the same price, and get something that's more agreeable to everybody. So
Yeah, I mean, I think we love the idea.
Go ahead.
I was just mentioning, I think we love the idea. We were not sure if, it's doable, right? We didn't think splitting the building into two different materials would make sense. But if this is something that commission is happy with, Sam, like you mentioned, it could be a combination that it works at the end of the day.
Well, and as Nan was saying, you can tint the stucco to match what is above and that sort of thing. So I think it could look a lot more uniform than it sounds.
Exactly, that's what I was getting at. Yes.
With care, it's just a matter of care and extra effort, as Sam is saying. It's not your typical mason off the street, but again, you're also owners of this building long term, and it's in your own interest to, long term do this the right way so that it doesn't deteriorate or cause other problems down the road. So
I'm going to ask if there's any public comment for this application. Matt or John, are there any hands raised?
No hands are raised.
Okay. Then I'm going to ask the committee to make a motion. Unless there's any more discussion.
No, I think we talked about many solutions here. I think we gave you a lot to think about, and you should and could do some of these samples and things with the staff between now and the commission. So for now, as proposed, I'll make a motion of going with the staff recommendation of denial pursuant to standards 5, 6 in the masonry guidelines, with the expectations that you can probably find some sort of a happy medium in the process ahead.
Do I have a second on Justin's motion?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to the next application, 1601 Mount Vernon Street.
Okay, can folks hear me and see the screen there?
We can.
Okay, good. I don't see her in the meeting, but if Nashe Potois is here, if she'd raise her hand to be elevated to panelist. If anyone else is here representing this application, if they would raise their hand to be raised to panelist. Hopefully there's someone here from the project. And I'll go ahead and read a brief overview. This application calls for amending the Historical Commission's July 2023 approval for the rehabilitation of the Robert Purvis House. The developer seeks approval to substitute cast stone for marble on the front facade stoop and door surround, owing to the high cost of marble. The applicant is determining the viability of cast stone for the water table. The property at 1601 Mount Vernon Street is a significant in the Spring Garden Historic District, owing to its association with Robert Purvis, a Black anti-slavery activist, writer, and lecturer who resided at the property for the final years of his life, circa 1875 to 1898. Over the last few decades, the property languished and was subject to multiple violations, proposed but unimplemented projects, and court orders, culminating in an Act 165 conservatorship. The city demolished the rear L to abate a dangerous condition in 2012. After years of deterioration and legal proceedings, the property is being rehabilitated. The staff recommendation is approval if the water table as well as the surround and stoop are built with cast stone, with the staff to review details pursuant to Standard 6. And I don't know if anyone else has raised their hand or is participating from the meeting or not.
No hands are raised.
Okay. I guess by default, then I will stand in as best I can, having had a lot of communication with the developer about this project as it's gone through the rehabilitation process.
Dan, did they? Whoops, sorry, Amy.
Dan, I just have a question about what happens as you go around the corner from the staff's point of view. Does the water table end at the corner, or does it continue down the length of the adjoining street?
The initial, let me see if we can get a picture here. So the initial approval by the commission called for, the drawings called for the water table to continue down 16th Street. It's actually not that common on these buildings in this neighborhood for that to take place. So many months ago, at the staff level, we felt comfortable not requiring that water table to continue, since when looking at different blocks in the neighborhood, there were many buildings that only had the water table on the front facade. So that we felt like that was something that could be approved at the staff level. But obviously to move to have, as it was currently proposed, no water table at all, just the brick at the base, versus what we, I'll say this, the staff doesn't love this solution, but we've been through a lot of back and forth with this, the developer, and felt like this was the most sort of acceptable one within the cost constraints of the project.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know that there's been so much care to save this building over the years, and I think it's a result of so much effort on so many people's parts that it's really important. And I think that I'm personally okay with the substitution of cast stone, but I think that the detailing of it should match what it's supposed to be. And I defer to you in terms of the side elevation, but I think I'm fine with it as cast stone. But again, I think that the detailing should look right.
And the staff agrees entirely with that statement.
It's a miracle this building has survived and gone through what it has. I mean, I've followed this for many years, and it's really, when it's all said and done, which isn't far off, will be a real success story.
So I understand what are they gonna do? Cut that brick? Are they gonna cut that out and then put cast stone in its place? I mean, what am I missing here?
From a construction point of view, we haven't really gotten into that level of detail. We've mainly been discussing the material solutions. So I think if we were to be able to get approval for the cast stone, and again, the staff recommendation would be the cast stone on the water table as well, then the question will turn to how are you going to accomplish this, and how do we best get the best replication of that pattern, which is, down the street here. You can see in this image on the left-hand side, this is new construction, but they did a pretty nice job actually replicating this kind of door surround that you see on this block. And I think we might have another picture or two here. Well, maybe not. Yes, Nan.
Proposed color, the cast stone, sort of in the white beige family?
We would be looking to match the color as best we could. I'm going to be honest.
The color of what?
Well, to get as close to a marble kind of color, a more of a whitish tone than a gray tone as we could. I'm not sure how practical that is. That's, sort of the details as we move forward if this gets approval.
I'm just shocked that you're acquiescing on this so much on the marble versus cast stone. I mean, this is like, I drive by this property every single day. I've looked to buy it. I can't tell you how many times over the last few years. And when I did my due diligence, I'm like, I know what it costs to build this stuff. And, I chose not to move forward, but I mean, to do the door surround, at least the door surround and the front steps in the original material, being that this is a significant home, this isn't just on a block that's, in a designated area. This is a significant property. So I'm just I'm just surprised that we're willing to acquiesce that much on it. That's all.
And did they
And
get
I'm usually the
prices?
opposite.
I was gonna say, you switch sides, Sam. Have they gotten prices from more than one person? The cost of materials sounds really high.
I don't know if they were able to get more than one bid for the marble. I have no reason to believe that. I think the developer here has run into more cost difficulty than they expected. And while it's not our job to make sure everybody makes a nice profit
Right.
on a project, we've had enough back and forth that as a staff, we felt that this project best keep moving forward. And I will also say, the reason we have, this may be a statement of the obvious, but the reason that you all are here is to provide your expertise. So Sam, if you think these numbers are unrealistic, or if you think the cost is bearable on the project, we're relying on you all to use your expertise to evaluate these.
So Dan, I would
situations.
ask that this quote be provided on the letterhead of the company providing the stone.
Well, in all fairness, I know the stone company, and Dan did call me about this for
Right.
references. So I don't doubt that part of it. But I don't want to,
But $6,500 for one piece of stone that's probably, we'll say, 5 feet long.
Mhm.
I don't
No,
know how
I'm
much
with
of
you.
this is material and how much of it is installation. And the installation cost is going to be the same whether you're doing stone or cast stone. So I would just be curious to actually see the quote on the letterhead of the company providing the material.
A
And
great
no matter
point.
what the material is, I have a very bad feeling that I'm going to drive by this property again, and whatever we approve is going to be glued to the front of the building over the brick.
Right.
I could just
No.
see it coming.
So maybe a little more information for Dan to understand where these numbers are coming from, both split out into material and installation cost, and what is the true material cost difference between cast stone and marble. I do agree, Sam, it is totally preferred to have the marble, and I would always hope for that, but I think that additional information would be helpful.
And
And
then the
how-
other
how-
thing is to make sure you have the details of how they're going to install it. So it isn't glued, it isn't 1/2-inch material glued to the front of a building.
Now, if
And
it was marble, I would, almost ask you, Nan, do you acquiesce a little bit on, no, how would that even work? It's what are you going to tile over?
Yeah, it's like it becomes a tile. It becomes a tile.
Well, no, I
and
don't know what they're proposing. I mean,
It's like,
Well,
and the
I
fact
think,
that they
Sam, your initial question of why is it brick now leads to a very good question, which is, how are they going to attach this and what thickness is it? So I think that's all very germane to this whole discussion and decision.
Yeah. Dan, I am sympathetic to the fact they took the project on, and this thing was sitting here. It's got to be 15 years, just languishing out there and deteriorating. So I am somewhat sympathetic, and I've been on both sides of the table. Just so I understand, the water table in the stone material is going to stop at the corner. I know Amy asked this.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So
So
obviously
we would
we're
not
gonna-
turn the corner.
Okay, so we're still going to see some side profile of it. So that's a good example of something
Yes.
that should get detailed. So we're not seeing the 1/2-inch thing. It's like, I just know the way these things go and what the end result is. So.
Well, and to that point, since it has changed from what was originally accepted by the commission, Dan, I know you'll do your due diligence to see how the neighboring buildings do accomplish that. It might mean that it wraps to a certain point. I think that's an important detail, especially if we're not sure how thick this is. So I think these are all details that you clearly are working towards, but we're just reiterating the importance of them.
Right. And yeah, I was going to say, is there a world where like to do the marble steps for the foundations, probably every bit of $25,000. That, somewhat realistic. But is there a world where you get the marble steps and other things are a different material, or does that just look ridiculous and you might as well do stone? That I would defer to my colleagues on.
And I think a lot of that depends upon how they're going to assemble all these pieces. Like how do things stack? How are they installed? What's the relationship between stone, we'll say marble, cast stone, and brick, without seeing what they're proposing as far as all the details, it's hard to just make a general assumption that it's okay. And given what's been built, it's even more difficult on my part to really understand what they're proposing to take apart in order to get this material in.
I think what we're all struggling with is that there's a lot of unanswered questions here. And I think some of those can easily be addressed by the staff, but others may be larger questions. And, while my initial inclination was to follow the staff recommendation, I'm wondering if maybe this should be discussed at commission level, given the level of unknowns here. So that's something I'm wrestling in my own brain at the moment.
I think it's certainly, in my mind, it's an incomplete application without knowing a lot more information. So
yeah, it's not just about the materiality. It's how it's going to get detailed, especially knowing the fact that there's brick there now. How's that getting removed or dealt with?
I think I asked this. Was there any public comment on this? Dan or John?
No hands
Any
are
hands
raised.
raised?
No
Okay.
hands are raised.
Then can I get a motion so we can move on
There's
to
a
the
hand.
last
There's a hand.
A hand was just raised as you were
Okay.
asking for a motion.
Okay.
Julia Heyman.
Hi, apologies for the delayed hand raise. I'm trying to work and pay attention at the same time, but I just wanted to echo the comments about the marble. I've walked by this building many times for many years. I used to have family that lived by this building, and this was on my walk home, and I'm equally excited to see that it is going to be reused and rehabilitated, but I also want to echo the comments just saying that I think after waiting so long to be brought back to its glory, that this building deserves a little bit better than cast stone. And though my single comment might not make a difference at all, I still think it's worth going to bat for this building. And I just think it deserves natural stone after waiting so long to be brought back to its glory. And with that, I yield my remaining time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other hands?
No hands.
Okay, let's try again. Can I get a motion for this application?
I will make a motion of denial as presented, given incompleteness of information, and leave it at that.
Do I have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any? Okay. Motion carries. We can move on to the last application on our agenda today, which is 4275 Viola Street, or Viola Street. I'm not sure how it's pronounced in Philly. So.
Thank you. Before I begin to read the overview, if we can please elevate Clevey FH Demolition to the panelist level. Thank you. And if anyone else representing the ownership, I don't see German Yakubov here in the meeting, but anyone else, please raise your hand. So The property with the three-story row house at 4275 Viola Street is classified as contributing in the Parkside Historic District. The Department of Licenses and Inspections cited the property as imminently dangerous on June 25th, 2026, so just a month ago. In response to the violation, a demolition contractor working for the property owner submitted an application requesting approval of the complete demolition of the building. And that's the application that you have before you. The property at 4275 Viola Street has been neglected for many years. The current owner, Haverford Square Properties, purchased the property fairly recently in May 2023. L&I has issued imminently dangerous violations for the property 4 times since 2021, and most recently, as I already mentioned, just 1 month ago. Last year in 2025, L&I issued a make-safe building permit to the current owner to address the deterioration and repair the rear L to comply the violations, but no work was undertaken and the permit for the repair work expired. Section 14-1560 of the city's Historic Preservation Ordinance enumerates the restrictions on demolition and stipulates that, quote, no building permit shall be issued for the demolition of a historic building unless the Historical Commission finds that the issuance of the building permit is necessary in the public interest, or that the building cannot be used for any purpose for which it is or may be reasonably adapted. End quote. The application does not attempt to demonstrate that the demolition is necessary in the public interest or that the building cannot be reasonably adapted and therefore fails to justify the complete demolition as required by the preservation ordinance. Of course, one could argue that demolishing an imminently dangerous building and abating a public safety hazard is necessary in the public interest, but that argument hasn't been made, at least explicitly in this case. So the staff of the Historical Commission conferred with the head of the unit at L&I that administers ID violations, and he indicated that the violation can be complied with a make-safe permit allowing the applicant to partially demolish the rear section of the building under the direction of a registered architect or engineer. And just this morning, the applicant submitted an engineer's report. We received it early this morning. And that report, I provided it to the committee members and we placed it on our website. That report indicates that the rear must be demolished, but that the front can be repaired, albeit with difficulty. Repairing the front may require bracing that would have to extend into the street and would block the street. But we just received that report this morning. The staff recommends denial of the application pursuant to the demolition restrictions in the preservation ordinance and suggests that the building should be repaired as proposed in the make-safe permit of 2025. And if that is not viable, if it cannot be safely accomplished at this point, then the rear L should be demolished to abate the dangerous condition and the front main block stabilized and sealed. And you have with you here today to represent the application, the demolition contractor.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I was surprised when I received that email from L&I stating that they can give us a make-safe permit. When we have the demolition violation notice, the case number is 2026 075935, stating that you must repair or demolish the structure immediately, and due to the exterior wall partially collapsed, interior floors partially collapsed, main roof deteriorated, fire damage interior. So we went there on Friday with the engineer, and the property is in very bad shape, and has a demolition contractor. We suggested the owner to demolish the whole building because it will cost a lot of money and dangerous, just to keep the front portion of the property. And the engineer suggested to brace the front if that's we're planning to do, and that will, like you said, will cover the whole front. And I think it will cost more time and money, and it will also be very dangerous to leave that portion standing itself because if we remove the back portion, it's going to compromise the front due to the very severe damage that the property has inside. A lot of joists are missing due to the fire, and the front facade is in very bad condition.
I have a question. Maybe it's for John Farnham. You said that L&I has issued four violations for this property as far back as 2021. Were any of those remedied, or were they all outstanding?
It's my understanding that none of those were ever complied. And I know more about the more recent violations, and there was at least an application to repair the property submitted last year, but then for unknown reasons, that project did not move forward.
Thank you.
I'm gonna just go out and just weigh in here. I mean, there are other ways to brace these walls rather than making it an obnoxious intrusion into the street and trying to create an argument that you just can't do it. I mean, you could create like an interior frame up just above the floor level, couple feet above each floor level, and just sort of brace it internally to itself and kind of create a new box. I mean, you're basically running whalers around the wall and then bracing it horizontally to itself. So I think there are other ways. And again, I say this from experience where we've done this on other projects. I think you've heard that we understand that the back portion is unsafe, potentially from neglect. I will just put a pin in that, but it's unsafe. And so if you're going to demolish the back portion, it sounds like that's beyond saving. But I'd argue that there are ways to brace the front portion to allow it to be safe, to be able to demolish the interior damage framing and then make positive new connections. So I'm not convinced that the front half or any of that can't be saved in a way that doesn't infringe upon the public sort of access to the sidewalk and the streets around it.
Yeah, I understand that, but looking at this picture it does make no justice. You have to see the property inside, so you will see the real damage of the property.
Well, I want to parse out and not look at the pictures related to the back half, because I think I agree with you that portion probably is beyond saving, right? So I think including those is a bit misleading. I think focusing on what's happening at the front half and those masonry walls and saving those masonry walls, which arguably, if we're sort of saying what's more important than the other, those are the more important facade to save. You can save those and then rebuild the floor framing inside. Yes, the wood framing looks terrible, but it's pretty easy to replace wood framing and then re-tie it back in and create a new diaphragm attachment to those walls. So I think there is a path forward. I agree there probably is some work required. Saving these buildings isn't usually easy, but I do think the benefit is there to do that and to move forward with saving the front portion of this building. And I'm not seeing anything that says you can't.
I agree.
Are there any other committee comments?
I agree with all that has been said. Succinctly by our structural engineering colleague.
I just want to
I-
say it's a character defining building, and it would be a tremendous thing to lose a building like this that has such a presence on the street. So I'm in agreement. I think that the
Yeah,
front
and it
portion
has
of this
that
building should be saved.
and it retains the bay, which not every house had, you know, which makes it even more important. And it's, you know, this is a district, and this is a real heart of the district here. And the fact that there's an empty lot next to it is you know, unfortunate, but I think that can be infilled at some point, and possibly in conjunction with the restoration and saving of this facade. So I think this is a major uh, piece of the streetscape that should be saved.
John, are there any public comments?
Yes, there are several hands
Okay,
raised.
why don't we go with those, please?
Okay, first is Hannah Stark.
Good morning, committee members. This is Hannah Stark speaking on behalf of the Preservation Alliance. A lot of the committee members have already kind of hit all of the exact points that we were going to say. We believe that this property is extremely significant to the Parkside Historic District. And, you know, if to make the property safe, that rear L needs to be demolished. We can understand that, but we think under no circumstances should the front portion, the facade, be demolished. So thank you for the time to speak this morning.
Thanks. Next.
Next is Evan Litvin.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I just want to make a brief comment. This is Evan Litvin. I'm a registered architect and one of the largest commercial property owners in this neighborhood. I want to just fully support the committee's comments on this, Allison, Amy, and Justin's comments. This is an extremely important block to this neighborhood. And I believe the front should be maintained if at all possible. It does appear that the back is beyond saving, but the front absolutely should be maintained. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Evan.
Next is David Traub.
David Traub here representing Save Our Sites. You know, I frequently drive by the Parkside frontage of the historic district, but just a while back, I ventured back to Viola Street, and I was so impressed about the architecture of this wonderful row of houses, and it would be a terrible shame to lose one of them, particularly the front of it. So I concur with the committee members and Evan and Hannah that yes, if it's necessary, demolish the rear wing, but certainly keep the front to maintain the integrity of the splendid row of houses. Another point is these houses are smaller than those in the front, are more amenable to turning into renovating for subsidized housing. They just are a little more congenial in that way. So the block is very valuable architecturally and from an economic and social point of view. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else, John?
Yes, last hand is Ariel Harris.
Hi, good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Good morning. My name is Ariel Harris. I'm speaking on behalf of Repoint Philadelphia. We've been working with members of the Parkside Community Development Corporation in hopes that this house can be retained. They've been in numerous legal disputes with Haverford Square Properties. Unsurprising to you, they own the lot adjacent to this one, so you can probably assume what their motives are here in proposing this full demolition. I also just want to add for the record that I don't love that the applicant submitted materials the day of this meeting, you know, expecting members of the public and this committee to scramble to read and analyze that documentation. But I mean, even as you can see from these photos, none of them are recent, actually. the slide you have in front of you has photos dated from 2022, which is before the property even came under Haverford Square ownership. And given that they did a site visit yesterday and no new photos were submitted, it just feels a little disingenuous to me as a member of the public. This company bought this property knowing it was historic, and instead of making right on their make safe permits, they've let them expire, and they're hoping to just push this through the process and enhance some of their power against the community that is fighting against this demolition. So I would encourage this committee to weigh their options carefully. We would not like to see the back L demolished if at all possible, but if that is the only way forward, we understand. But if they wanted to, they would, and I think that there is a future that can keep the entirety of the structure intact. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else, John?
No other hands are raised.
Okay. Can I get a motion by a committee member for this application, please?
I can go with a staff recommendation for denial pursuant to section 14-10560 of the Philadelphia Code.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. And with that, we conclude this meeting and my having to be acting chair.
Well done, Nan.
Well done. Thank you for doing so.
Thanks. Have a good week, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.